Hey, everybody. How's it going? You are live on Shally's Alley. It is December 18th. No, wait, 18th or 19th? Oh, my God. I lost track of time. This happens a lot. It must be the holidays. So December 19th, actually, not 18th. And you are on Shally's Alley live. Our guest today is none other than Anthony Sasaga.
That's it.
Anthony and I almost worked together for a short period of time. We had a bit of a false start. I hired him to come work with me at a previous job, and then something tragic happened, and it was a bad family situation. So we ended up not being able to actually complete the project, but we've kept in touch and are like-minded individuals with very different perspectives. So I invited him on the show to pick his brain about, let's just put it this way, frameworks.
Yes.
And my ask was, let's talk about, because one of the things I wanted him to build when I hired him was, help me build a framework, right, for what we were going to be executing on, some pretty lofty goals for a high growth technology unicorn. So I said, let's put together a framework. And he came back and, of course, one-upped me and said, not just a framework, but let's talk about a framework that anybody can use in any industry and for any role with any tools available. And I'm like, that's not possible. And he's like, yeah, it is. And I was like, no, show me. And he goes, wait, I'll show you on the show. So this is the show.
Perfect.
Normally you have to pay me a lot of money to do that. So, now we're in the weeds here, and let's just go. I guess my first thing is there really a framework that anybody can adapt immediately for any role? Is that even legit?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been in the industry since 2002. So I started with a boutique firm, worked my way through different corporate organizations. Most recently ended up with Korn Ferry. Worked for Amazon, done some work for Deloitte, like some of the best in the business. And, a
lot of different types of jobs too, by the way.
A lot of different types of jobs. And so for me, I wanted to be able to create something that I could utilize, a strategy that I could utilize in any job, like kind of a plug and play. And for me, I developed a 4-tier system that helped me really truly develop some of the best talent. I mean, it provides me an outline or framework of what exactly needs to be done in order to be successful. And it includes every aspect of everything that needs to be included.
All right. In order sounds to pretty comprehensive. But
yeah.
Can you give us like a quick outline of it? Just the big picture overview of it. So
Absolutely. So the 4-tiered system that I have is it's 4 stages. The first one is intake discovery. The second one is identifying and finding prospects. The third is engaging prospects. And the fourth is submitting qualified talent. So of course that's going to be the last, but those are essentially the categories. I mean, if you want to simple it down, it's really intake, candidate discovery, engagement, and submittal.
Okay. That makes sense. Yep. Totally aligned with that. Intake, in some cases, people call it briefing, kickoff, whatever. But basically, the intake is the part where you have a conversation with the decision makers about like what are they really looking for. And you might, in my process adds a step before that called pre-search, but that's like the sourcers, preparing for the intake. But the intake is really where the rubber meets the road. So.
Yeah, I like that, Shally. By the way, I also prepare some calibration resumes before I go into a meeting just to.
Right, that's the pre-search.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, so that's a good step too.
I think we can put that into it's part of the objective of the pre-search is the intake anyways. So What are the tools that are involved in each of these like 4 buckets?
Yeah, and regarding the intake discovery, I mean, it's really the tools that I utilize in the intake. I really like to identify the sourcing channels when I have my intake meeting, so I can discuss that with the hiring manager. We're really setting the stage on how this business partnership is going to work. But the tools that I utilize in the intake in order to get business intelligence or to find individuals, GitHub, of course, LinkedIn, Seek Out, AngelList and Intello. I mean, those are some of the ones that I've utilized. Sourcing IO. I've developed. Boolean is interesting. I mean, a lot of people aren't using it. A lot of people are going with Chat GPT. Higher Tool and Source Hub actually has a really good Boolean developer, which I really like a lot. When you're talking about the intake discovery, you also have to manage, the sourcing tech that you have to manage. Not only the ATS, but if you're using, sourcing tool, maybe an online sourcing tool that can help you manage, all of the candidate flow. Yeah, those are some of the tools. Just a high level overview.
So you do have tools. I mean, not a specific, but you have tools that you use for the intake to help you record the meeting, transcribe it.
I do.
You have tools that you use for the discovery, obviously, and for engagement. What about on the very end of the submittal? Are there any tools for that?
On the what? Sorry, I missed
Yeah,
that.
submittal stages, like once you've got your candidates, do you have any tools that you use to like package them and present
I
them?
do. I mean, and here's the thing. Mine is kind of a homegrown tool.
Okay.
What I do is I provide an overview of the screen itself, and so anytime I submit a candidate, I provide a fairly nice write up. And if I had a copy of it, I can show you guys a copy. I'll pull it up here in just a second. But basically, it's a structured outline. It provides all the basic details of that individual as a snapshot. So what this candidate, where the candidate location is, how far this individual is, or how much of a commute that individual has, a skill overview that's relevant to what we talked about in the intake meeting, really just the highlights. And also I include the compensation range of where this individual is and what this individual is looking for. So that way, the stakeholder can look at it and say, they can make a really good decision very quickly on this. And I've used this in probably the last 4 jobs, and every stakeholder that I have loves it.
That
So it's
sounds
not
like
really
yes, we might
it's
be able to share it or figure out a way to, but it is a tool, but it's more of like you said, a homegrown tool that anybody could adapt, really, right?
yeah, it's a template that I utilize to
Template,
be
yeah,
able to do that.
templates
Yeah,
are tools, yeah.
and but it's a really good template, and like I said, it's people seem to love it. By the way, I've got a screenshot of it. If I can share the screen.
Yeah, there's a little thing at the bottom that where you can share the screen.
Yeah. Let me see. I think this is it here. Yeah, this is it. Okay, if you're able to look here, and this is basically what I utilize. So it's to me, it's a very clean format. You're able to see this, right?
Yep.
Cool. So candidate name, phone number, salary expectations. I at the very beginning, I put reason for interest and motivation for looking.
Oh wait, it's showing your desktop,
Oh, weird.
not the
Hold on. Can you see it now?
Let me try that again. Share it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Bear with me.
You have a fan.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, cool. Okay, can you see it now?
No, I can't. It's still the desktop.
Dang it. I don't know why it's not sharing.
Is it a document?
Yeah, it's a document.
And you're sharing your screen?
Yeah, sharing screen.
Oh, maybe you have a different screen?
Yeah, hold on. Do you see it now? Do you see it now? Well, anyway, I'll include it in.
That's all right. We can put it up later. Yeah.
You guys can see it at some point. But yeah, it's disappointed that you can't see that because it's really one of my favorite things.
When I don't share screen. I do like I add like an image. There's like an image sharing, but I don't know if it's an image or if it's a is it like a PowerPoint? What is it?
No. It's a Word document.
Oh, yeah, maybe that is why the screen share. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. But I'll share it with the group if I can do that. But it's really just a format.
We'll put it in the. I'll tell you what. We'll put it in the extras. So
That'd be good.
You know, when people go in online to the TSI University, they'll be
Yeah.
able to get the extras. So we'll put it there.
Yeah, and it's really easy to export too, and it really is just a fill in the blank. But yeah, for whenever I utilize this, I mean, it really provides a really good snapshot
Okay.
of the individual and essential skills, whether they're open to hybrid or on site, what their job title is. But really, most importantly, I put an area that has the essential skills that are relevant to the position based on the intake. But the thing that clients love most is I create a value add area, and I include
Ah, okay.
3 bullet points that really talk about, hey, this is what this individual's done
This is,
that
yep.
has made, saved, or achieved something
And
great.
that's you doing that. That's not the candidate saying that. You're like, here's this candidate's value add.
Yeah,
And so the hiring manager has like a, I don't know, like a snapshot of
correct,
your evaluation of the candidate.
correct. And you guys will love it. And once I send it over, like I said, it's easy to plug and play, and it's got the different bullet points and whatnot that you can fill in. So, but yeah, it's great, man. I love it.
So, everything's supposed to go great. Everything's supposed to go well. Yeah, but it doesn't. So what are the pitfalls that we need to look out for and avoid at each one of these? Like give me the top one or two pitfalls at each one of these stages.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to tell you this. Being fully engaged in the intake, really the pitfalls for me, the biggest pitfall is that not establishing the business relationship right from the very beginning and expectations. You've got to line out, this is what I'm going to be responsible for. This is what I need you to be responsible for. When I submit candidates to you, I really, really like to get feedback within at least 24 hours because we don't like candidates to get stale, especially individuals. I mean, I'm out there kissing a lot of frogs, and I'm providing literally the best talent that's out there. The last thing I want them to do is waiting on feedback. So I do establish a threshold. So those are really the pitfalls of the discovery meeting, and really, for me, another pitfall is not digging in and really asking the questions that you need to, because people can go, yeah, these are the responsibilities of this role and all of that. But other pitfalls are like, hey, I mean, a lot of recruiters don't do this. I'm shocked that they don't. Is that they don't go through and look at or ask about the tech stack. Like, what systems are you guys utilizing? What are you using for reporting? What systems do you use? Where do you integrate? Like, where do you pull data from?
Okay.
All of those things are extremely relevant because you want someone that you recruit that can obviously hit the ground running. And if you've got all that information, that's great. In order, in finding and identifying prospects, one of the pitfalls there for me is really if you've done, the business intelligence and you're a master sourcer like you are, like I am, you spend a lot of time whittling down the best of the best.
Yep.
And when you do that,
Right.
one of the pitfalls that you have is okay, how are you going to manage this reach out? Like anytime I reach out on LinkedIn, I always look at the percentage of responses that I'm getting. Even if I'm doing, email, or if I'm
Mhm.
doing email or
Right. It's one of the things you need to, if you
yeah,
want to improve, you can't get there from here if you don't know where here is.
that's exactly right. You got to look at if you've got deficiencies and you've got a low response rate, you're not talking to your audience correctly. You need to change your message. You need to go through and whittle that down. And a lot of the time, it is recrafting that message over and over again until you're able to get the responses that you think that you need to get. In terms of engaging prospects, for me, one of the pitfalls there is really not managing that prospect all the way through the process, including, when that candidate actually doesn't make it through the next round. I mean, there are a lot of recruiters, and I know this is simple stuff. I know this is just recruiting 101, but I can't even tell you how many people said, look, such and such, reached out to me. I never heard from anyone again. For me, it's continuing to engage and pre-close as much as possible, and I cannot emphasize that enough. My present rate and is very high. Like I have a client now that I presented 6 candidates. They were great, all great. Well, 5 of them went to the second round of screening with the senior vice president, and we ended up with 2 offers out of that, and we had 100% acceptance rate. And that was because I pre-close and I pre-close, and a lot of recruiters, they don't really emphasize that and talk about it all the time. You've got to talk about salary, what their expectations are. If you can line that out, and I do it every single conversation that I have. So even when I engage a prospect, I tell them about the opportunity, go through all the nuances that everything that they're looking for in this job, and I reiterate that time and time again. So when we get to the close, I know that it's a done deal. The other thing is that submitting, a huge pitfall of submitting qualified talent to recruiters once you're in the submittal phase. Um, Sometimes recruiters can get desperate and they'll be like, I don't know if this candidate's necessarily a fit, but I need to submit somebody. Don't do that. I mean, it's
Just to have anybody, right? Like,
yeah, just have anybody. You
just
have to
put
build
somebody
faith
on
with
there.
that recruiting manager, and you have to be honest with them. And sometimes, we all know as sourcers, you have good days, and sometimes you have not so good days. And you got to say, look, I went through, I reached out to 45 people, I had 15 people respond, and I just did this last week with one of my managers, one of my VPs. And I said, look, I just don't have anybody. She wanted to fill the slot for Thursday. And I filled Tuesday and Wednesday with on-site interviews. And she trusted me. She was like, hey, just whoever you want to bring in, like I trust you. You brought such good talent. And I told her, I said, I just don't feel comfortable with the people that I've interviewed because I don't really think that these people are worth a deep dive. So I don't have anybody to fill your calendar. But I was honest. I mean, I really put an effort toward it, toward finding really good candidates. Unfortunately, we just didn't have anybody for Thursday. But it is what it is. And as you continue to do that, you really build trust with the hiring manager. Because my manager told me, she was like, "Look, I really appreciate that." She's like, "Now I'm able to get some things done on Thursday that I need to get done. I know I wanted to interview some people, but the fact that you're out there, screening these individuals and helping me determine whether or not these are a good investment of my time. I really appreciate that." So even though we don't have anybody, she respected that. So that was really cool.
That's yeah. Oops, sorry. Do you hear that?
What is that?
The air just came in. The heater just came in. I wasn't sure if you saw that. Sorry, it took me a second to recalibrate there. Yeah, let's just throw somebody in there just to put somebody on the calendar. No,
Yeah.
you know what? My biggest pet peeves. I get it. Really hard to find candidate, get them engaged. They're not really looking, but they'll consider the opportunity because of the conversation they had with me.
Right.
They get really interested, and I know they're 100%, on the mark. I send them to the recruiter, and then the candidate never hears back from anybody. Like just nothing happens. And so they come back to me again. They're like, "Hey, I haven't heard from anybody. It's been like 2 or 3 weeks. I thought you said this role was, fairly critical and urgent. Like this doesn't feel very urgent."
Right.
And I have to go back and check with the recruiter. And I'm like, "Yo, what's going on? I literally passed you a hot potato. Are your
Right.
hands burning? Because you've got this hot potato." And they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, let me go and look at that." And that's the first time they're even looking at that. And it's been 3 weeks, and I'm like, "What?
No, you can't do that.
Yeah, how do you not understand the And these are recruiters, so they should know. But just nothing pisses me off more than that, because now I'm like, how do I explain to the candidate that literally nobody looked at their just
Right.
sorry, we didn't look at your profile.
Right, especially passive candidates that aren't really looking, and you entice
Now
them.
they are. They are
You're
now.
evangelizing this opportunity. You're like, hey, this is a great company. This is a really, really
They weren't looking before.
Yeah. Okay. I'm interested. Yeah. For me, it always goes back to setting those expectations, even with
But you set them. You have an SLA and everything, but the recruiter just never does. They just don't do that once. All they had to do was reach out, literally email the candidate and say, "Hey, great to meet you."
That's it.
The moment that I send you the candidate and introduce them to you via email, and I copy you and the candidate, all you literally have to do at that immediate moment is just say, "Great to meet you."
Yep. Immediate response is
Literally just great to even if you don't. I'll send you a calendar link, in a few later, or I'll get back. But just, "Hey, nice to meet." That's all you have to do. You don't have to do anything else. But they don't even do that. And of course, I don't pay attention because I'm moving on to something else.
Right.
So I come back and check, and when I come back and check, it's already been a few days, or a week, or 2 weeks, or.
That's frustrating.
I have to check more frequently. Is what I have to.
I was telling recruiters, I'm like, look, I do a lot of due diligence trying to find these individuals. Of the 7 people that I talked to today, this is the individual that I thought was worth responding to and at least pursuing. So you've got to respond to this individual.
Say something. Just say
Something.
hi.
Yeah, exactly.
Check this out. So Yvonne was asking, how do you deal with scenarios where a hiring manager has strict guardrails with who they want from the market?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I'm assuming really narrow skill set here.
Yeah.
So the hiring manager is making it worse than it. Like the requisition could qualify lots of people, but the hiring manager says, but I only want to see this. And then that eliminates, most of the people. So how do you handle that?
I will tell you that I give them a snapshot of what I see in the market. So I'll usually do a LinkedIn search or maybe do a seek out search, and then I'll pull up some calibration resumes of individuals that are in that market. But generally, I'll let them know, look, of this narrow skill set that you're looking for in this particular town, especially with the tier one competitor or whatever it is that you're looking for. I just did a high level search on LinkedIn. I only found 15 people, and of the 15 people, I'm going to send you 4 of the resumes that I thought were probably as close as possible to this. And I usually tell them, look, if your scope is so narrow like this, you're going to limit your candidate pool. Now, can we give and take on some of these on these qualifications? Because in most jobs, you can give and take. Like, what's really critical? I know that you wanted 5, but really, what are the 3 most important ones? And then I always try to negotiate with the stakeholder to say, look, I think that this guy would be worth the call, or this girl would be worth the call because they have 3 of the essential skill sets. Yes, we're missing a couple here, but this individual, obviously, just from having a conversation, is well studied, is very much a go-getter in terms of learning new technology. Like, this person can ramp up very
And you
quickly.
provide the evidence, like, here's the evidence for that.
That's exactly right. Provide the evidence and say, look, this person's a shot, worth a shot. But yeah, give them an idea of the landscape and show them how narrow the landscape is. And once you do that, send them the best resumes, even some that aren't necessarily 100% qualified. Send them the ones that are 80% qualified, 70% qualified.
I do that. I like to make what's called a sandwich. Well, I call it a sandwich, where you find the person that like fits everything. And then I'll go up a little bit and find someone that's like a little bit more. So let's just say, to be practical, that the job requires 10 years of experience in XYZ. So I'll send that, right? But then I'll also send somebody with 12 years of experience. And then I'll also send someone with 8 years of experience, but they have everything else and maybe even extra, but they don't have the 10. So it's like, I meet what you said, but then I'll give you a little bit more, a little bit less. I call that my sandwich. And then that helps me calibrate, because if they come back and they like the one with the more experience, I know that's where they're headed. And if they come back and they say, well, that other one looks great, and they don't mention the fact that they have less experience, then I know that they're looking at the other stuff that's not years of experience. And I know where, like, it kind of helps me, figure out where to go.
That's exactly what I do. That's exactly what I said. So yeah, that's awesome, man. I love it.
The sandwich. Yeah.
Sandwich.
Folks, tons of resources like that at TSI University. By the way, we also have extras from the information that Anthony is sharing. And so to access it, you do have to be a member. It is free to join, but you do have to be a member in order to access all the handouts, so that I don't publicly put, people's private information out there. So, nice tools when guests give us gifts like that. I'm going to upload them in there, and you'll find them in the episode guide. So please join us there. You mentioned something, Anthony, that I wanted to jump back in on and kind of circle back to, I should say.
Yeah.
You talk about the real qualifiers, and then you said 3, for example. But so my question back to you, or my pushback is, are those the real qualifiers because the other ones are fake? I mean, why are those the real qualifiers? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. When I look at qualifiers on a job description, some are like aspirational, like, hey, this is what we really want.
I gotcha.
Really operational. And I like to focus on, for me, like what are, in terms of the in terms of the fake qualifiers, for me, the stupid things that people put on job descriptions are like, must be self-motivated, must be a self-starter, must work well with others. I mean, how can you qualify any of that? That's all subjective. Like, like it's really based on, you can ask anybody, hey, are you a self-starter? Oh yeah, I'm a self-starter. How about, are you really motivated? Oh yeah, I'm motivated. Like, how do you vet some of that stuff? You can't. And so I don't like those qualifiers. I don't like when there's verbiage in the job description that says things like that. To me, it's just all silly. Where I really get down to the core of a job description, and when I'm doing my intake, I'm like, look, let's talk about the essential, requirements for this position. What does this role do? And what do you need this person doing? When this person does this job, where's the value add that this person's going to add based on what his job is? And so I always like to get
Right.
to, like not just, hey, are you motivated? But it's really when I look at the job description, I do the same thing with candidates. I don't like to just see bullet points. I like to see more meat to it. And that's why an intake call is so important, because you weed through all of that subjective stuff, right? And get to the really, really important stuff. Yeah, take qualifiers.
Is there anything in the intake that you ask, any question in the intake or kickoff call that you ask that nobody else does, or that you're not aware anybody else doing?
Yeah, yeah. It was a month ago, and I had this lady who said, "Hey, we've got a senior financial analyst position open again." And I said, "Again?" And she said, "Yeah, we've had 3 people in this role that didn't work out this year." I'm like, "My God, that's pretty high turnover." So what do I ask that no one else asked? I asked, so of the people that you've hired, like, who has burned you and why? Like, what has burned you in the past hires for this role? And why did those individuals fail? Um, you know, and for me, I want to know where the failure was. Like in my intake, I always ask, why is this position open? Is it a new position? Is it a position that's a replacement for somebody that got promoted, or is it
Okay.
a
Why does
replacement?
the job exist?
Yeah, why does the job
Yeah, but
exist?
I think people ask that, so I'm not sure that's one that qualifies.
Yeah, for me, it's really, what would make this, hire fail within the first 90 days? What could this person
Oh,
do
I like
that
that.
would make them fail in this job? And so once I get that, I get kind of the keys to the whole,
Right.
the
The
whole
opposite of
solution,
that
right?
is, yeah. So
Yeah,
what would be their bit, like what would make them fail? And then you want to make sure somebody's got extra of that. That's
yeah,
good. I
yeah. And
like
the,
that.
oth- and the other thing is regarding a competitor list, I always, I know nobody asked this, but I do. I say, okay, I've done my due diligence here. I've got a list of 7 competitors that I'm going to be sourcing from.
Right.
What company would you not hire from, and why? And so,
Nice.
right, and then I'll,
That's interesting that you said that because well, I used to work at Coke,
yeah,
Coca-Cola, right?
yeah.
Not KOCH, because I'm aware there's a company
Oh,
called
industries, yeah,
KOC.
yeah, good
Yeah,
one.
Coke.
Good one.
But anyway, Coca-Cola, the soft drink beverage, and it took me in my first couple of months. I was presenting candidates from quote unquote competitors, and
Yeah,
of course, when you think Coke, what do you think is a competitor?
right.
Pepsi,
Take
right?
Pepsi, Dr. Pepper.
Right, Frito
Yeah,
Lay,
Apple.
the other company,
Yeah,
and they were not making it through the interview process. So I held back a minute. I'm like, wait a minute, it's normal. My normal strategy is to find people from similar companies. As it's not the only thing I
right.
do, but it's definitely in my book. It's my in my playbook. One of the plays of the playbook is find people from competitors. Duh. But I then later on, I had a conversation, a very candid conversation with one of the pretty senior hiring managers there that had been there for a really, really long time. And I basically I said, now, as part of the intake, I said, now, if I bring you some people from, for example, from Pepsi, would those be, like highly desirable? And he kind of paused and looked at me, and I think he kind of took my measure and said, yo, this guy doesn't know like our culture at all. Like he was at that point, like that was the rookie card on my forehead going, yeah, I don't know anything. Um, because he basically took a step back and then sort of changed his tone and said, look, let me tell you something. He said, we don't hire from Pepsi. And I'm like, we don't? And he's like, no, we don't. And Pepsi doesn't hire from us. And I'm like, is there some sort of agreement, or because nobody told me that? And he's like, no, it's not an agreement. It's a culture. It's a way of doing things. It's a way of business. It's a
Yeah.
there's so many other things that, people from Pepsi, they have their own way of doing things. And if they learn how to do things that way, it's very different. It's almost like having to relearn. But if they learn from other companies that are in the same fast moving consumer goods industry, Bird's Eye Foods or, Tropicana or whatever, but they're not in the soda beverage, whatever, those skills are transferable. But when they're in the same space, and then he broke it down and gave me a couple of examples, and I was like, oh, some of them are really logistical examples, but it made a whole lot of sense.
Yeah,
but the best thing that he said was this. He said, let's say that you go to a restaurant in another, state, right? Because I'm in Georgia. This is Georgia. Yeah. Obviously, if you go to any restaurant in Georgia, they're going to have Coke. It's hard not to. Yeah. But let's say I went somewhere and he's like, let's say you're in New York and you go to a restaurant and you ask for a Coke and they say, oh, sorry, we don't serve Coke here. We serve Pepsi. What do you say? And I'm like, I probably would just get water. And he goes, that's the problem. Most of the time when people are Coke drinkers and they're offered a Pepsi, they just say, I'll take iced tea or I'll take orange juice. Or vice versa. If you're a Pepsi drinker and someone says, here's Coke, they're like, oh, never mind then, I'll take root beer or whatever. 100%. And he's like, that's why we don't hire from each other. And I'm like, oh my God, that makes a whole lot of sense. There legitimately are like direct service delivery versus, there's all those things as well, but that just made a lot of sense.
Yeah, so that's great. And I love that. Yeah, I love that. And I've presented that competitor list when I was PAE.
Here's the companies. Who would you never hire from?
Yeah, like we don't want anybody from, and they said, we don't want anyone from Boeing. We don't like their
for whatever reason. Yeah, different process. Different. Right. Yeah, it's not like, oh, people from Boeing don't smell right. No, whatever. It's just
totally the different culture.
They don't fit. They're not going to make it through the interview. That's awesome. Yep. All right, so you give me two things that you do in the intake that nobody else does. We're gonna need to put these. I'm gonna put that link back up here, man, because we got a lot of stuff. You're going to have to get the show extras at tsiuniversity.com. Otherwise, you're not going to get access to these things, folks. All right. So you mentioned competitors and you brought a list, 7 companies, you said, right? Got it. But earlier you said companies with similar tech stacks, because one of the things that you do is ask about the tech stack. Now, what about non-tech companies, right? So when it's a tech stack, like if the product is tech, the company is tech, and the hiring manager tells you, well, we do Kubernetes and Docker and JavaScript and blah, blah, blah. Right. Great, you're hiring for tech. But what if it's a non-tech company or a non-tech job? What's the equivalent of that?
I always look at, and I've done some of these positions with non-tech roles. So I've staffed a lot of operational roles within aviation. And so there's no real tech that's there. It's really, a business model similarity, like the operational complexity of the business itself. I look at customer type, transaction volume. I look at regulatory exposure, and, for me, I look at some of the similarities, like what companies, have that similarity. And recruiting for aviation can be really difficult, especially some of the aviation, the ground positions, the grounds people and all of that, because for me, there's nothing necessarily technical about what they do, but how do they operate the business model for what they do? Like one of the clients that I have, they do a lot of mid-air refueling, and I look at the business model.
That sounds like the military.
Yes, yeah, it's really cool, man, what they do. And I look at the business model and how similar other competitors are. I also look at the operations and the complexity of that. How difficult it is it to do some of the grounds job within aviation? And I list those things out. But yeah, those are some of the areas that I focus on.
So are there places I use some tools for tech stack discovery, like built with and things like that. But that, of course, that again, it goes back to the product. Are there any tools to discover? Are there any tools that you use to discover target companies that are in the same space, but it's not a tech stack thing? I'm trying to not putting this the right way. Like the Coke versus Pepsi, right? Like, how would you find the other companies that are in that space if you don't have like a ready-made list of things that you can look up or Google?
Go to built with.
That's what I was talking about for tech, though.
Webalizer is also really good.
Oh, Webalizer. Okay.
Yeah. Their stack is good. Stackshare is good, but it can be limited for
Again, technology, right?
yeah. But Wapalizer is really good. That's
So you
what I
know what I used to do? I don't do this as much anymore, but I used to use the related command on Google
yeah,
with the company domain. So like related colon,
love it.
Lockheed or related, and then it pulls up a list of other websites that are similar. But that results for that have deteriorated lately.
They have, yeah,
So it
great.
doesn't quite, if you did related, and then Motorola and looked it up, it now comes back and it gives you like things that are like literally directly related to Motorola, as in like Motorola subsidiaries and things like that. It's not actually giving you the what used to be, which are like similar websites. You
Yeah,
know,
back 10 years ago when we were doing a Boolean like that, you would get really great results. I'm finding the same thing too. I'm finding some,
it's okay. It's just not as accurate.
okay, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, it like gives you, right? And I noticed that there's a difference if you use www versus not. So if you do related colon www.motorola, I'm doing this right now, and like, yeah, it's the same thing. It gives you like the Lenovo story. That's sort of similar, but then it was like Motorola carriers, Motorola support, Motorola. Like these are all related to Motorola. What I wanted are the ones that are similar. So I wish there was like a similar colon, but that doesn't exist. So I'm wondering what. So Webalizer sounds good. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
sounds
yeah.
good.
Yeah, try it, man. It's good. You'll love it.
And so the other thing I wanted to ask you about, once you kind of have your tech stack, your company list, your competitors, you divide up your competitors into tiers. You got tier one and tier two. Is that because like tier one is bigger, more employees, more revenue, more population, or is it a reputation? Like what makes a tier two not a tier one?
Yeah, it's skill transferability, cultural proximity, like you talked about Coke and Pepsi,
Mm.
compensation overlaps.
So it's almost a quality, like it's a formula, a qualitative formula.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
so it could be a smaller company, but still tier one.
yeah, and for me, tier one competitors produce like plug and play candidates. Like when I look at tier two competitors, it's yeah, these guys have some of the skills. They're definitely trainable. And I always present people that really have an upside. Like, yeah, these this one guy, he's got 4 years of experience, but boy, this guy has really done a lot and and those to me are really, really good candidates. Like the ones that are on a management track and they're trying to get as much exposure and much experience as possible. Yeah, for me, it really is. When I look at tier one, it's really I can take this individual with that tier one tech stack and the culture, and they can go from one company, and we can just plug and play. For me, any tier two competitor, just yeah, they're good, but they're going to have to be trainable.
Mm.
And but I'm looking for
So
high
it's
value candidates.
transferable versus like a direct.
Yeah, yeah,
Got it. Okay, that makes them tier. Well, transferable is tier one, and sort of like ancillary could be a little bit of evolution would be tier two. Okay, all
right,
right.
right. And to me, both really matter because I can't.
Yeah, you're not saying don't do tier one. You're just saying,
Yeah,
and I'm assuming you go after tier ones first, exhaust that, and then go to
oh
the
yeah,
next one. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
right.
Absolutely,
That makes
absolutely.
sense.
You have to have a tier two, a tier two list. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about engagement. So now you've got you sourced your leads, and you're starting to do. You talked about some tools that you use for engagement, but you mentioned um, buffer. How do you use buffer to optimize timing and reach? Because I thought buffer was I thought buffer was for like LinkedIn posts. How are you using it?
Um, I use it. I mean, I um maintain consistency. A consistent employer brand visibility. That buffer allows me to do that. Um, I the buffer also allows me to promote roles without it sounding like spam, which a lot of people are turned off by.
Okay.
And The buffer also allows me to coordinate messaging and outreach and pull data on response rates. Make adjustments when necessary. And the goal, again, isn't volume. It's really strategic repetition at the right moment. you got to be smart about what you do. And recruiting is it's a thinking role. You can't just, you're not just plugging in data and you're just, okay, next, next. You can't do that. The thing about recruiters, a lot of the people that I know that are recruiters, a lot of the good ones are very, very smart, and they're very intuitive. They're very present about their job, and they're extremely adaptable. I found that the best recruiters are really adaptable. They're like, okay, this isn't working. We got to try something else. You've got to adapt, you've got to improvise, and then you've got to go after it again. And for me, the buffers really allow an opportunity for me to kind of catch my breath and just go, okay, is this really working? Am I getting what I need out of this?
Got it. That makes sense. So it's more for your buffer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, because most of the time I'm managing these things. So, and then I'm looking at it from somebody that has rec ownership, right? And I've taken roles off, and I do a lot to create a buffer, within the ATS. So for me, it's really just about looking at the metrics and data. And I've even gone so far as to completely pull a job that is not getting the right candidates and rewording it and maybe putting a different title on there that's more relevant.
So my process is a little bit similar in that it's like I want to say it's a recalibration. So I've got this 12-step program. Yeah. Believe me, when I put this program together, I had no intent for it overlapping with any other 12-step programs. It just happened to actually be 12 steps. But since then, I've kind of, yours is 4. Yeah. Basically, my 12 steps are 3 of them in each one of the 4 that, so like your 4 have 3 sub-steps. That's the difference. That's but I've actually put all 12 steps into a system that's got 3 now. And very similar to what you're talking about. You've got the strategy, right? Everything, all that, how, where, when, all that stuff. And then you've got the execution of like the sourcing execution, the outreach execution, everything. And then you have on the other side the day-to-day. I just call it cleanup. I mean, there's cleanup or whatever you want to call it, but it's all the operational stuff that's day-to-day. So in mine, when I do a sequence of, I'll find 20, 25 leads, then I'll first do the sourcing, then I'll do the outreach. I don't find somebody, contact them, find somebody, contact them. I just find 20 people, 25 people, and then contact them, right? Mm-hmm. And then if I need more, I'll find more, and so there's always something moving along, but I don't like the task switching. So I'll do 25, do the outreach. And if I notice that my response rates are like way off, I'm like, all right, something's wrong. I got to calibrate. Mm-hmm. If I notice that I'm submitting those people and the hiring manager is not biting, by the way, I'm here to tell any recruiter out there, if you're a recruiter and you're listening to this show, let me give you life-saving advice. This is the most radical and the most important advice that you will ever get in your entire life for recruiting. And I am not kidding. Listen closely. If you're not getting feedback from a hiring manager about a candidate that you submitted, that's the feedback.
That's right. That's right. If they're not wowed, they're not going to waste their time.
If they didn't reply to your candidate submittal, it's because they didn't like them. Now, that might not be the feedback that you wanted, and you sure do deserve and should get some sort of like, well, I didn't like them because this, too big, too small, not enough, whatever. But you did get feedback. The feedback you got was silence. And that is feedback. They didn't like the candidate. So anyway, back to what I was saying before. I'll pause and be like, where I submitted 3 or 4 people, or I send them some resumes, I didn't hear back. Time to recalibrate. And so that's when that's my buffer. I go back and I start with, did we hit the right requirements? Are all of these things possibly in the same page? Can somebody have all these things? If somebody had all these things, would they want the show? I don't want to say second guess myself, but I sort of go through the process of validating it again. So I like that. That's part of yours as well. I think it's in a similar vein. Mine is more, batch process and then reset and then batch again. Yours is programmed into, you've got these spaces where you actually do verification and checks. I like that better. Mine is a little bit more haphazard, but we're at the end now. It's time to turn it in. This is the proof in the pudding. You got a candidate, you're submitting. Everybody talks about quality versus quantity. It's better to have more quality than it is quantity. But at the end of the day, what I see the most often as a consultant, as a leader, is people just send quantity. I see recruiters sending more resumes. Why? Because the hiring manager asks for it. The hiring manager says, I want more. So the recruiter sends 3 highly qualified people, for example, and the hiring manager says, I want to see more. And the recruiter sends more, and then they send more, and then they send more. Like, so we talk about quality over quantity, but then we just succumb to quantity. What gives? What's going on there?
Listen, you can't do that. I mean, first of all,
but it happens.
It does happen. And I've had managers. Here's the deal. If hiring managers are asking for more, it means that they don't trust you. You got to develop a business partnership with the stakeholders. You got to tell them, look, for every person that I'm sending you, I'm pre-qualifying 3 to 5 people, and I'm sending you the very best. For me, I never do that. I even when the manager says, hey, I'd like to see more, and I'm like, well, what's the justification behind that? I mean,
why? Why? Why do you want to see more?
Why do you want to see more? How does that make sense? I said, first of all, you're involving a lot more people that you're going to have to look at. I said, why don't you just let's have a narrow focus. I said, look, I'm a professional here. I'm going to send you the best of the best of people that are absolutely qualified and fit every. They tick off every checkbox that you gave me, and I'm not going to inundate you with resume after resume because it's just not for me. You're watering down your entire process, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to talk to 15 people, and you're not going to remember the person that you talked to a week ago if you've interviewed 15 people. I know because hiring managers, I've dealt with hiring managers before, and I said, hey, what about this candidate that I sent over the second day? They're going to forget those individuals in the process. Not only that, but it also slows down the process because you're involving, especially with that have extensive hiring processes like what I've worked with, like Amazon and HPE. They all have extensive processes. The last thing you want to do is get 8, 9, 10 candidates deep into a process that can take up to 3 weeks. I mean, you want to, and for me, I'm like, look, you've got to trust me. You've got to understand that and I reiterate, I go back to the intake call. Look, this is what I did during the intake call. And the reason I had that, and my intake calls are an hour, Shally. They're not 15, 20 minutes. They're an hour. We get into every detail possible. And then what I do
an hour spent there is like 40 hours saved somewhere else.
You're exactly right. And I always go back to the intake and then I send them a synopsis of what I gathered from the intake call and just highlight the areas that he or she wanted to pursue. And in doing so, I'm like, look, I'm going to go through and I'm going to present, 3 to 5 candidates max. But of those 3 to 5, know that for each one I vetted.
There's been a bunch of work, right? Exactly. Here's what I did.
Yeah. And so, and I always tell them, look, mine are going to be clearly pre-qualified. And I always come in with my, with some of my stats. And my stats are, 95% of people that I have submitted to job orders in the last 15 years get hiring manager interviews. And of those, I have at least 65 to 70% that go to the technical interview or the second interview. So we've got to build some trust here. Again, when I talk about quality over quantity, I want to, I just, for me, it's really being aligned with what are the real deal breakers, and if you're wanting to see a lot of people, not everyone's going to be the same. And so it looks like, for me, from my perspective, it's like you're willing to acquiesce some things that you really want, and let's focus on what you really want instead of muddying the waters with all of these additional people that, may have some skill sets. But, why do you want to invest time in individuals like that aren't really relevant and I don't think you're going to move forward with? So, yeah, that's a tough one to get with hiring managers.
More. I want to see, sorry, say that again.
No, you're right. It's like, I want to see more, but you're like, no, that's not how this is going to work. And I usually set the precedence pretty quick.
So we have a question. How do you influence the CTO to consider individuals with experience in an adjacent technology that, that's not like they're close, but they're not the same?
That's a good question. I've had a lot of tech positions at HPE, and okay. So I worked for Korn Ferry. One of our clients was HPE. They weren't meeting the thresholds of the SLA because of exactly that. The hiring manager said, "Look, this isn't necessarily what I'm looking for." And so most of the time, the recruiters that were working there before I got there were throwing up their hands like, I don't know what to do. For me, you know, the hiring manager isn't real, that stakeholder, you know, the relationship that I have with the stakeholder and providing valuable candidates also includes data about the market and how some of these people can be transferable, and say that they don't necessarily have a language, but at least it's relatable to what they could do. I mean, and I always make a case for people. I mean, I always negotiate with the hiring manager, and I'm very good at talking to hiring managers and to say, look, you need to have a conversation with this person based on what I know about this software engineering job. And my experience with this is that this software language that they have, although it's not directly related, it is transferable, and it is something that we can teach on the fly. Now, most of the time, especially with HPE, they had some very, very difficult um, positions to fill just because of the software languages that they were requiring for some of the people. I mean, some of the positions they required at least a couple of different software languages. I'm like, guys, this is a dual role here. Like, that's not going to happen. We're not going to have these individuals that have that understand these two different languages. You're not going to have that. But I do have somebody that understands one of the languages and also has experience with something that's very similar. And I really believe it's transferable. For me, it is always about negotiation too with the manager. You have to, they have to rely on your expertise as well with what the market can dictate. So, and I found that to be, I found it to work, for me. But again, you're going to have some hard asses that are just like, no, that's what I want. But I will tell you this, that I do inundate them with enough data and allow them to make a decision to potentially, to interview individuals that they might not have seen otherwise. And for me, it is about, developing that data and saying, hey, this is why I think you should see these candidates. It's about making a case for these individuals that you believe in and know that can do the job. And I've done this long enough, where I'm an expert in that area. But, for me, it is just about having that dialogue and not letting them push you around all the time. And, they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And you got to give them an idea of what the market looks like and what kind of candidates are out there. And, I'm not going to, you're not going to have a perfect one every time. But yeah, for me, it is about negotiation and about just.
So you have to have that rapport in order to do that. You have to
100%.
establish the rapport in order to get to the point where you can do that. Well, this has been incredibly illustrative and very detailed. I'm going to put the transcript up. Once again, everybody, you will be able to access this at tsiuniversity.com. The video is on YouTube, but all the handouts and everything else are going to be at tsiuniversity.com. I encourage you to go in there and check it out. We are probably not going to have an episode next Friday because it is the 26th, the day after, Christmas and all that good stuff. So nothing next week, but we'll be back after that. So tune in, and happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas. If I don't see you, Happy New Year, everybody. Anthony, thank you so much for being our guest today. We'll certainly invite you back. And
always
folks,
a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah. Be kind to yourselves.